So I just finished watching The Matrix Resurrection with a group of friends in the cinemas, and typically after watching a movie like that, after the movie you'll start discussing robots, AI, the future, and simulations and so on. But the question that usually arises most of the times is whether we should be actually worried about robots and whether we should be worried about AI or not. And if you ask an older person, most of the time they will say yes. Even if you ask people in my age or in my generation, they will also be worried about that idea that in the future robots might be taking over, AI might be taking over. They just start imagining things like the Matrix and like the Terminator and so on. And it just seems like people are really worried from that, although we use it every day. And although I do actually agree to some extent, sometimes these fears are justified and it is likely that some of these scenarios happen, I think people are worried about robots for the wrong reasons. I do have my worries about them, and that's actually why I made this video, so we can discuss them. But I do think that most of the reasons why people are worried from them are actually incorrect or might not necessarily be as big of a deal as you might think. And obviously, this video have a lot of predictions. It's not based on anything. It's just based on movies that I've seen and used based on my understanding of the technology and the technical knowledge that I have based on that field, basically. So don't take everything I say with a grain of salt. But basically, before I begin with anything, let's just identify what a robot is. And I've got it here from Google. So just to explain it, a robot is a machine, especially one programmable by a computer, capable of carrying out a complex series of actions automatically. And from that, we can understand that things like your car is a robot, airplanes that you go on every day are robots, your phone is a robot as well. Um, Buses, trains, and then you've got things in factories or things that are used in manufacturing things. These are robots as well. Tesla cars are manufactured by robots. Actually, all cars are now manufactured by robots that are programmed to do a specific job, and they do them really well. None of these machines have ever decided to kill a human or run over a child or intentionally manufacture a fault in a car. That doesn't happen. Yeah, we're very scared of that as well. And before I get into why we're scared of them, let's then talk about the other group of robots. And these are AI powered robots, or robots that have capabilities of thinking or making their own decisions or having their own emotions and feelings. And that last bit, emotions and feelings, currently does not exist at all. And it doesn't seem like we're really wanting to get there, and it doesn't seem like we actually will get there anytime soon. But there are machines or there are research and a lot of progress into making a robot think for their own or make decisions based on their own analysis and understanding. And before I continue in that, now let's go back to why some people are scared of the robots that are used in machines or the regular everyday robots, the second class robots. And I actually think it's a fair fee to have. If you work in a factory, you're most likely going to be replaced in the next 2 to 3 years or 2 to 5 years based on where you are. Robots do things much better than you are. They require much less payment. They don't need insurance as much as you, at least, and they don't take annual leave. They just do. They're much better than you are, and as sad as it sounds, they're just much more productive. They don't sleep. And so, if you're afraid about a robot taking your job, that's very reasonable. Although, if you have another skill or another knowledge or something else that you can do, you can still actually manage to survive this change happening. So that's a very reasonable change. Now, usually people are much more aggressive about this thought and they are afraid, the robots will take over and so on. And I don't think that's gonna happen, at least for a really long time. And so I'm gonna talk about what you should actually be fearing AI from. We already discussed why you should be worried about robots. Yeah, your job, whatever. That's very important. But now let's discuss the big people, the people that we should really be worried about, and that's AI powered robots or AI in general. And that can come in the form of just software. So it can just be a program, and most AIs are currently found in software. It can come in the form of a robot, so it can be an AI powered vehicle, like a car that drives itself. And it can also come in in an AI powered robot in the shape of a humanoid. So, and this is actually very limited. Almost most robots being produced right now are not in the shape of humans. Like, why would you? We already have humans that look like humans. Why would we create something that looks exactly the same and has the same physical capabilities? But anyways, these are three different types of AI. And I'll be more focused on the software AI just because of how easily it is to actually create them and publish them to the world. And that's where most of my feed goes to. And that is that AI becomes used in anything. Just like our phones right now, if you want to schedule a meeting with someone or if you want to calculate a specific equation, you trust your phone much more than you trust your brain. You wouldn't just depend on waking up at 8 a.m. You wouldn't just depend on calculating your salary or calculating how much you want to sell your house for. You would use a calculator on your phone. You will set calendars on your phone because you trust your phone much more than you trust yourself. You trust it much more than you trust your parents or whoever's responsible to actually take care of you. And my issue is that at some point, we will also trust AI with much more complicated things and much more, I guess, ethically depending things. For example, in the court or in the law. My biggest fear is at some point we will use AI software to judge whether an offender is going to do the offense again. For example, if you are a criminal and you have completed 3 years in prison and you're about to leave prison, they see you in front of a AI software, and that software analyzes what you've done during that time. It analyzes your crime, it analyzes your family history, and then comes up with its own analysis to why or why not you are most likely going to commit that crime again. And again, maybe 50%, 60%, 70% of the times it will get it correct. Maybe at some point it will be 99% correct. But now we're talking about much bigger things than organizing when to wake up or using the calculator. Now we're talking about things that will really change families or will affect people on a huge personal level, things that they can never get back. Much more than that, I'm afraid that AI at some stage will be used to even predict crime or to predict things before they happen and actually act on them. For example, if you suspect that a specific criminal might be, or even just a normal person could be committing a crime in a specific area, you start analyzing, you screen them using an AI software, and you analyze their moves, you analyze what they do, what they're eating, who they're speaking with, and then let's say the AI software detects that they are actually most likely to commit a crime in the next day, hour, week, years. The police will go and act based on that information and actually log that person. For me, and you might think it's really far off, but it really isn't. There are so many places in China or in casinos specifically that actually use that. They sort of analyze your body, they analyze your behavior, your breathing, and they can detect or they can red flag you based on whether you're most likely going to steal a few chips or whether you're counting cards or whether you are about to steal something. And if that becomes our main way of judging people, our main way of, you know, pushing the law and executing the law, if it becomes our main way of policing the community, I really do think that that will be a much bigger problem than few robots taking few jobs from you. And what can we do to actually stop this? I'm not too sure because although yes, does bring a lot of problematic things and it does bring a lot of fee, AI in general is going, or it should at least, or it is being designed to help all of humanity really. The main reasons why we're going through AI is because we are hoping that it can help us reduce poverty, reduce homeless people, or reduce the amount of suffering, or reduce the amount of labor required by everyone in general. The whole idea is that at some point, humans don't even need to work anymore. That's the long term sort of idea behind developing AIs. And you can find that in movies or stories or novels created years ago. It's not something new now. But just how we're creating AI to develop those things and to live through these things, unfortunately, the other side of it is also inevitable and it will definitely happen as well. And that's what I think you should be actually afraid of when it comes to the whole AI discussion. Now, finally, and the last bit that I'm worried of is actually AI and how it's going to be replacing humans or it's going to be replacing humans' emotions. Now, this might be a little bit funny to think about, or I might be completely wrong about this idea, But think about it, and let's start talking about like industry where care is required. For example, aged care workers or workers that work in nursing homes and so on. I can not imagine a better or a more risk of a job being removed than this job. And that's because a lot of it requires a lot of labor, requires a lot of attention, a lot of care. And humans, although we do apply for jobs like that, there's just so much we can do. If we're having a bad day, we cannot actually care for someone else. If we're having a rough day, we cannot empathize with someone else and make them feel better. But robots, they don't feel anything. And although they don't feel anything, they can be at least programmed to show those feelings and show those emotions. A person sitting alone in a room will feel the love, or at least will feel the care, if it's given by a software or if it's given by a robot. Now, obviously, this is thinking how advanced this is going to be. It's going to affect the experience given by experienced by the user. But at some point, a human can be replaced when it comes to care jobs. Just how right now, at the moment, a lot of people, especially those who actually can't find sexual desire with real people, do end up using things like sex toys or even in the very near future, sex dolls or sex robots. Now, although it's something completely different getting care from someone else than having a sexual experience, we can very easily see that some of the most human like experience or some of the most important experiences that humans go through can very easily be replaced by robots or by machines when that human cannot actually find it from another human. And care is, although it has a higher, I guess, value, will also be replaced at some point. Someone who cannot find care from their children, from their moms, from their friends, will eventually replace it and to some degree feel satisfied by a machine or by a robot as well. Now, why do I actually have an issue with that? Although it doesn't necessarily affect me if they're getting satisfied, they are. It does affect me because it seems like it will slowly start reducing the value of what a human really is. If we look at the porn industry, or if we look at the sex toys industry or the sex robots industry, we can very easily see that people who use this specific products tend to have a lower value of what another human is. Some people would even prefer having a sexual experience with a machine or with a toy than with a real person. And eventually, a lot of the experiences will also be preferred by a machine or by a robot than by another human being. Why would I want to be friends with someone who is not always available for me, who's not always caring for me, who doesn't necessarily always agree with me, and who might also not be smarter than me? He might be dumber than me. Why would I need someone that might not benefit me as much as a robot who is smarter than me, that would definitely help me if I need help, would always be around, would not sleep, always is available, and to some degree gives me what I would think is emotions. At the end of the day, and you might be thinking, well, I'll always be able to tell, or I will never be able to be satisfied with a fake emotion. Just remember the last time you went to a clothing shop and the lady at the store or the guy at the store said that, yep, this looks good on you, you should buy it. I hate to break it up to you, but most likely that comment by them was nothing else but to make you buy the shirt, or to make you buy the tie or the dress. But I would be lying if I do not feel happy, or if I don't get a sense of comfort when that salesman or saleswoman do compliment me, even though I know it's fake. But just getting that fake comment or fake reaction does still give me comfort. It does still satisfy me to some degree. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy this episode. I know it's a little bit different from what we usually do. It's a topic that I might not necessarily understand too well. No one might necessarily understand it too well, but I would love to get your comments on this video. What do you think of it? And what do you think of this whole AI idea as well? Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.